This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. We come to you regularly with short business episodes, short private equity episodes, also interviews with brilliant private equity and business leaders, and a lot more, and sometimes irreverent episodes. We'll come to you later today with an episode based on a couple Jackson Brown songs that was shared with us. Now we go in the irreverent category. And for people that are my age, you know what Jackson Brown is. For younger people, he's a famous artist from back in the day, songwriter, artist, etc. Anyways, here's 10 stories we're following today. And before I get even into those stories, we'll talk about sort of biggest news of the day, which is President Biden withdrawing from the presidential campaign, stepping down as a Democratic nominee. And this is fascinating because it puts the whole election back into play, although it's always been in play. And I guess first we'll see who the Democrats nominate, whether it's Kamala Harris or somebody else. Second, it will turn up the level of speculation for the next 4 months tremendously on what's going to happen in the November elections. That's sort of the story we're following of the day, the biggest story. I no political position on this, just fascinating to watch how this will play out. So here are the 10 stories we're following from the business side. The NASDAQ's up 20% year to date. The S&P is up 16% year to date. We'll get to this in a moment too, but the markets are actually rising today, surging today, and we'll try and figure out what's driving that. Second, the 5 biggest market cap stocks and what they're doing year to date. I'll just walk through these very quickly. Apple rebounded greatly, up 16.5% year to date, back on the throne. Tim Cook, taking over the Steve Jobs company, just fantastic. Second, Microsoft up 16.24% year to date, also doing fantastic. NVIDIA, and we've profiled Jensen Huang, recently up almost 140% year to date. Google, the company that Sergey Brin and what's his name, Page built, up 27% year to date. Amazon up 20% today, ran by Andy Jassy today, founded, of course, by Jeff Bezos. Fascinating, separate podcast on Jeff Bezos last week. So those are the 5 biggest market cap stocks and what they're doing year to date. Third story today, the 4 largest payers by revenues and what they're doing year to date in the stock market. United has rebounded greatly. It's up 7.4% year to date. CVS remains down 24% year to date. It's that mix of CVS and Aetna. Aetna, of course, doing fine. CVS, the retail pharmacy, doing poorly. Cigna is up 12.15% year to date. And Elevance Health, huge in the former Anthem Blue Cross, up 6% year to date. Fourth, the 3 largest private equity funds. We follow this regularly. Blackstone up almost 6% year to date. And we have a separate podcast today, Private Equity, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that talks about Blackstone starting to deploy capital in a big way again. That's a tonic for the private equity business. KKR, also huge, up 40% year to date, and Apollo up 29% year to date. Fifth, as we mentioned earlier, the market's surging today. Good news in the markets. Like to see that. Sixth, the 1-year treasury remains flat at 4.87% or so. Oil has dropped below $80 again, and Bitcoin is up at 67,500. And we'll see how that plays through. There have been a lot of tech and Silicon Valley positivity towards the Trump presidency that he'd be very positive towards Bitcoin. We'll see how this plays out now that the election's more of a very fascinating roadmap to what going forward. Seventh, private equity. Again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've got a separate podcast on this. Blackstone starting to ramp up its investing, had its biggest second quarter of investing in a couple of years. That's good news. Second is the bad news. Texas Teachers Fund, the largest pension in Texas, decreasing its investing in PE. It's reducing its allocation by about $10 billion. That's a lot. And let's hope it's not a canary coal mine for the PE industry. And then finally, third, the New Mexico AG, puts a target on healthcare private equity investing. Again, we're a believer that anytime private equity is leveraging up a lot and in lower margin businesses, this can be challenging. Healthcare is no different than any other business, but it doesn't mean it needs regulatory attack. Eighth, Starbucks, a coffee chain we stop at regularly. Of course, no offense to my 2 favorites, Hometown Coffee and 3 Tarts, jumped nearly 7% Friday, but remains down 17% year to date. Ninth, thrilled to moderate a JP Morgan Healthcare Private Equity Fireside Chat on this Wednesday. It's this Wednesday in the Chicago area. If you want to join that, text Scott Becker 773-766-5322. Would love you to join. Don't be bashful. It's at 5:30 on Wednesday night. We'll have 3 brilliant JP Morgan bankers as the panelist. I'll get to moderate. 10th, we listed in our LinkedIn post 15 of our most listened to guest on the Becker Private Equity podcast this year. Those good: Mitch Granger of Northwestern Mutual, Rick Kess of RSM, Matt Wolf of RSM, plus a number of people from VMG Health, Jordan Nelson, Glenn Morley, David Pivnik, Amber Walsh, Holly Bucky from McGuire Woods, a whole host of great guests. We've also had Julie Yu on recently of A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, Anthony Scaramouche, Skybridge. Great fun. In any event, thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. Always feel free to text me ideas, thoughts, love it, hate it. Either way, 773-766-5322. Thank you very, very much.